It is the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson with you with the Anfield Wrap after Liverpool have thankfully beaten Bournemouth by 4-0. With me, I've got John Gibbons, I've got Steve Armstrong, who's going to chip in throughout, and we're going to have a chat about the title picture as a whole, insofar as there is one more, accurately maybe a race to the top four later on. Gareth Roberts and Mike Nevin, all with me. Steve, obviously from United We Stand. I'm going to start with Gareth. Gareth, what a relief.
Yeah, big relief. Kind of felt like for me personal well-being that I just needed Liverpool to win this weekend, and thankfully they did. I mean, I know, you see all the online debate, with your own mates, and everyone's sort of like, well, it's not too bad just drawing 2 games while you're losing your shit, but it just does sow some doubts. And then, to see them come out the way they did there, and people will say, oh, only Bournemouth and Eddie Howe's tactics, played into Liverpool's hands and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not really asked about other teams. I'm asked about what Liverpool are doing. And I thought the attitude was spot on. The commitment was spot on. And from the first whistle, you could basically see that they were on it. They were getting stuck in. They were pressing high. They were creating loads of chances. A few of them only sort of half chances. But, that's the way you want to see your team start the match. And I think the only worry was that, we started so well and yet we didn't get up, really. And you started to get that little niggle again where you're thinking, now, are we not going to capitalise on the fact that we're all over them here? Coutinho hits the bar with a brilliant free kick. And then eventually the goal does come and it goes from there. And there's only really the moment, isn't he, with Defoe in the whole game where you get a bit of a twitch. And then other than that, Clavan falls over at one point, maybe that's another one, but other than that, they really controlled it, they really dominated it, and just kept on going as well, which I thought was brilliant. Well, I mean, it's easy to take your foot off the gas, but it was like they wanted to make a statement again.
The intensity was one of the core things from it, I thought, Mike. The intensity, and it was completely different from Wednesday. It was completely different from Wednesday minute 1, as though this gang of footballers has got themselves together and said, what's happened on Wednesday there, that's not acceptable, this is what we've got to do.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a massive reaction to dropping points against West Brom and Everton, and you can bracket them along with Bournemouth in terms of quality. It was just night and day from those two performances when I think we looked sluggish really in both games and didn't create an awful lot of chances. Yesterday we must have created God knows how many. I mean, it could quite easily have been 10. It could quite easily have been 3-0 before we'd even scored, and then as Gareth said there, once we get the first goal, and it's a brilliant goal as well from Coutinho, even though Martin Tyler didn't seem that pleased with it.
He's a knob.
Yeah. Liverpool continue to just go at them. And I think Howe's tactics, yes. I mean, I think he'd come to a sort of an agreement within his own mind that Bournemouth are better when they try to play their own game, and when they've tried to sort of shut up shop against teams, it hasn't been particularly effective, and he's gone back to a more open style of play, and it did suit us down to the ground, but that can't take away anything from Liverpool's performance. It was just brilliant to watch. I don't think I've ever seen so many back heels in my life. I mean, there was one every 3 minutes. It was losing count, 1-2s, back heels, players playing at the absolute, zenith of their ability. And that's what this Liverpool team is like when it's on it. And maybe this is the frustration, really, that we're seeing 2 fairly sort of anemic performances at Anfield. And yet, away from home, there does seem to be a more, there's a greater intensity about them. And probably the reverse should be true, and that's probably why you can't get too carried away with it, because let's face it, we've done this 3 or 4 times in the last 3 league away games.
I thought it was interesting.
4, isn't it? 4, 5, and 4.
I thought it was interesting what Klopp said. Like, it was a bit of a tell, really, that he's really interested in the psychology of football. I think it's fair to say that, and we've seen that. And he said something about the game, those 2 games that you just talked about, Mike, about how they almost felt sorry for themselves that they hadn't got ahead when they'd had chances, and then that then affected them. And he said he'd said to them, just because you miss a chance, you're going to miss chances, don't worry about it. Don't let it get into your head. And they didn't, did they, this time? And they didn't let it get into their heads. And I think, particularly against West Brom, I think it did get into their heads that day. And they almost start sort of overthinking how they're playing, and they don't play that natural football, all the back heels and the flicks and the confidence stuff.
And this does sort of feed into the whole Liverpool mentality debate, and you can trace this back as far as you want in the season, but if you look at the City game, the way that Liverpool reacted to losing a man, rueful smiles, 1,000-yard stares, why is it all going against us? It was the same at Newcastle as well, albeit that they scored a freakish goal. And then against West Brom and Everton, again, for the few chances that we had, again, these looks of incredulity on the faces of players. Now, it's about challenging that mentality, I think, really, and they certainly seem to address that yesterday because they missed 2 or 3 chances before they'd gone in front. But that's got to be a constant from now on. You can't be doubting yourself, and yet, I mean, how they doubt themselves when they're scoring 4s, 5s, 6, 6s, well 7s on a couple of occasions is beyond me. They should always think they've got the capability to score a goal. It's just in those 2 previous home games they seem to just lose that belief.
Yeah, I mean, they're a funny team, aren't they, Mike?
Yeah.
And that's what you're kind of saying there. And I just come away thinking that afterwards, what a strange football team this is. It could really go either way. They could, if someone said to me next season you're going to do what Man City have done this season, I wouldn't be surprised.
No,
if someone
completely. I was thinking exactly the same during the game yesterday.
But if someone said to me, you're gonna finish 4th or 5th every for the next 2-3 seasons, and it's going to just be more of the same again, I wouldn't be surprised, because you can make an argument for each. Some of the football is unreal, and look, Bournemouth played into our hands. I think it has to be a factor, because there was just more space than there was against West Brom and Everton. There was far more space, and that's going to be easier. But still, when Liverpool's at the best, I can't tell what formation they're playing, and it doesn't help that I'm watching it on the telly. Although it was quite nice to watch it on the telly, but in terms of you can't see the bigger picture as much. But when Liverpool are playing the best, you struggle to see kind of what the formation is, who's playing where, and some of the moves. There's that don't lead to goals. There's the 1-2 between Coutinho and Salah, where Salah's, he saves it with his arse, doesn't he? The keeper, but it's just an absolutely brilliant move. I don't see how you stop. I think the commentator said that. Well, how do you defend against that? And you can't. And there was another one. Where Henderson plays it into feet and then follows it up, and suddenly he's round the back, and then he plays it into Firmino, and Firmino can't quite get it out of his feet. And that's great to see. I was made up to see Henderson doing that, really, because we haven't seen him doing much of that 10-man running, and he's very good at it. He's an athlete, so just loads of pleasing stuff that didn't lead to goals, and the stuff that did lead to goals was even more pleasing.
Just on that, starting with that front 3, John, and how well they work together, I thought that it's sheer magic, and it becomes so difficult to stop. That's the thing. Coutinho's goal, for instance, it's full of people trying to stop him doing what they expect him to do, and then he doesn't do it all the way through. He always does. Do you think, he's going to shoot now? He's going to go far corner. He's going to do this. He's going to do this. Begovic leaves his near post completely exposed because he thinks this is only going one place. He's going to whip this one around, and then he just puts it into the near corner all the way through. You think he should be doing something else, and all the way through, he's actually just doing the right thing.
Yeah, he does. It's a really good goal, but they can't be sure that he's not going to pass all the way through that, because first of all, there's runners, and that's great, and that's what runners do, and that's why you always want to see energy in your team, because that people not even touching the ball. That right back didn't know what to do, did he? I mean, the poor fullbacks all game. I thought Daniels was going to sub himself at half time, and then by about 55, he blagged an injury and went off, didn't he?
It did not feel like a blagged injury, I mean, you shouldn't say that. It didn't, but there was a thing in the back of my mind because he got involved in a little. They were like, Daniels is going off in a minute, and then he got involved in a bit of a passage of play. And I was thinking, he looks all right there to me.
Yeah. So I honestly thought he was going to sub himself, Tony Hibbert style, but not just the heat of the attack that time, rather than the sun at Wembley. Oh, what a day that was! Sorry, I've got off subject here. No, but runners really helps, and people making runs even if they don't get them, and that's why they got to keep doing, because Coutinho can score a goal like the one he scores, but also we're capable of scoring, brilliant team goals like you've seen in recent home games as well, where you think someone he's going to shoot it, and suddenly there's a little inside pass, and so it does confuse defenders, and that is us at our best.
Steve, there's across the league at the minute there is quite clearly 6 really strong teams, and there's one ridiculously strong side. But what's noticeable is how important it is that your very, very, very good players play very, very well in key moments. That's what gets you from 0-0 to 1-0. Does happen for Liverpool against Everton, doesn't happen against West Brom, happens here against Bournemouth. That moment of, we can't, you're literally it's almost like you're playing another game, you're another step above.
Yeah, if you walked through your teams of the sort of 70s and 80s, and in particular United's 94, 99 teams, even the 08 team, and said, right, across every game in that season, take your starting 11 and say, what do you think their average out of 10 will be? If you take the United 99 team as an example, you go Schmeichel, you go Irwin, you go Neville, Stam, Johnson, Keane, Scholes, Beckham, Giggs, Cole and York, you go, it's 8/9 out of 10 every single week without respite. And yet that's ultimately what's happening at City at the minute, and what isn't happening just quite as much at the other clubs that are sort of knocking on that door. And that brings it back to your point of, if you've got aspirations of getting into that next bit, that's what you need. You've got to have the bulk of your side. You can almost not even you can't even afford one passenger in there who does that. You've got to hit that 8 out of 10 every single week.
And that's bringing into Salah, Gareth. That's what's stunning about Salah at the minute. Firstly, is that he's playing like one of those players, and it's incredible to see. But also, it's the way in which, like those players just named there, you can say, well, I know what he's going to do. I know what John Barnes is going to do. I know exactly what John Barnes is going to do. I know what Peter Beardsley's going to do. It's the idea that, what are you meant to do about this? I'm watching them there with Salah, and they know exactly what he wants to. He could have scored 3 before the one he finally scores, and the only reason he doesn't score them is because of the quality of his finish. Nothing to do with anything the opposition are doing.
No, he had a couple of sighters, didn't he? And then decided, he was slotting the next one, and everyone thinks he's coming inside and hitting it. And yet the one he scores, he goes outside and for a laugh first, doesn't he? And then comes inside. It does feel like for a laugh. And it's just, I mean, as you say, it's all the best actually stopping it, because it's his pace, it's his control, it's the fact that he can get those shots off. And, look, everyone always said that about Robin, didn't he? That he knew what he was going to do, and that, that he wants to go that way and he wants to hit it, but he kept doing it. And people struggle to stop him. So it's all the best. It's all, dead easy to sit there from afar or in a TV studio or whatever and say, well, he wants to do this, so you don't let him do that. But he's just gone outside the fella first and then come inside and then put it in. So, what you do about that. And once you're inside the box as well, I mean, like, what can you do? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You can't commit yourself. You've got to just sort of try and jockey him and try and block him. And the minute you're putting a foot there, you're likely to give a pen away. His control's so good. I mean, they were trying to assess it on Sky, like, just what it is that makes him so good, and they were struggling, and it was dead funny, because it was like, he just has loads of touches, and it was like, because and he just keeps making little touches, and it's just taking it away from your foot all the time. Every time you think you can see the ball, and I'm going to go in for the tackle, there's another little touch, and he's gone again. And I kind of get what they were saying, but I was quite amused by how non-technical that analysis was.
I'm with what they're saying as well, Mike. But what is interesting about it is the sheer economy of it with Salah. Like Coutinho could play brilliantly and not directly create a goal and not score one, and you could come away thinking Coutinho was unreal today. He's absolutely pairing. He did this. Do you remember that point when he picked it up in centre mid, danced away from 3, and then just laid it up? You know what I mean? Whereas Salah, you feel as though most of what he does that's really, really good actually contributes to the ball ended up in the back of the net. Yeah.
I just think that the goal yesterday is so typical of what Gareth describes there, where he has a load of touches and he's sort of shaping it, isn't he? He's thinking, I haven't quite got the angle, another touch. I haven't quite got the angle, another touch. I haven't quite got the angle, yeah, another touch. Oh, hang on a minute, yeah, that's it, and just whack it in. And so, and there's great economy in that, in a sense, but then equally, I think it's about where, if there's a nominal starting position for him, for a fellow who's getting 20 goals before Christmas, he's a winger. And that, he's not a touchline hugger by any means, but he's a wide player. But it's his ability to move from those positions. But equally, that goal again, he gets the ball in a wide position. He's got his back to goal. He has to turn back inside. It's just incredible. And I suppose, you could still level the argument against him about his finishing a little bit, because he does have those 2 or 3 good chances, which he wouldn't say they're misses because they're relatively speculative, but there's 2 curling shots that go over by a little bit of a distance. So, I think the potential there, if he gets better, and he's young enough probably to improve, he could turn out to be a 50-goal a season man. Obviously Messi and Ronaldo have they've moved the goalposts in terms of what's achievable for goal scorers, and this fella I think is about as close to that at the moment. We've all talked about Coutinho. We all love Firmino. We loved Mane, particularly last season, the impact he had. But this fella's had the most incredible impact that I've seen, and it's out. To be fair, it outstrips Torres, and I think it outstrips Suarez as well, because it took Suarez, sort of 2 years really before he became as prolific as he did in the end. Just one last point though about the 8 out of 10s and the 9 out of 10s. That's where Liverpool have fallen down. That's why we're not in contention for the title, because I thought Lovren had a decent game yesterday, and 6 and 7 times out of 10 he looks all right, and then he just throws in an absolute shit show. Now, people say, the Liverpool's problems aren't systemic defensively. My argument to that is, I agree. So if it's mistakes, then the best players make the least mistakes. So the answer is get better players.
I think we need luckier ones as well. I think I've started to think that Lovren's just dead unlucky, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's a bit crap as well.
John,
when was the last time he got away with a mistake?
I agree with you, but I think he's got a fatalistic attitude.
Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe you know, like, there's his fingers
with. It's not a free kick.
I know.
No, it wasn't. I thought it was a really good tackle.
That was what made me thought. It's the best tackle he's done all season, and then he gets a free kick.
If you think about it, though, the referees watch matches, don't they?
Yeah.
And there's, you know, the players get a rep, and Lovren's rep is for clumsiness.
Yeah.
Now, if he dives in, he's got more chance of conceding a free kick than, say, John Stones, for example. And that's not fair, but it's a narrative that can become self-fulfilling.
It was the linesman who gave it, and he was
Yeah.
right there. And I just thought, you know, there's people say, oh, Benitez, he's a lucky manager. It's like, well, give me a lucky general over a good one. I'm starting to think about that with centre-halves, because I see centre-halves every week, like, mess up headers, and the mate clears it, and they go, got away with that one. I don't think Lovren was that kid in school who could never get away with anything, like, you know what I mean? Any little slip-up he'd make, you know, the head would find out about it somehow. And they go, oh, has that happened to you again?
Yeah, everyone has to pull the spliff and it's Lovren with it in his hand.
Yeah.
Head teacher comes
Exactly.
round the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder how many times he's had the strap off clock this season.
Just on going back to the really, really good players, John, before you derail us into our lack of luck, which, you know, I don't want to do that in front of a Mancunian.
He's not seen Lovren's tackle.
I have seen Chris Smalling and Phil Jones together.
The other thing that just gets me on it is the irresistibility of it. That they're just stuck all the time with he's just presenting massive problems. So, for instance, yesterday Bournemouth could maybe have protected the fullback a little bit better, but if they do, they pull the shape out. And all the way through, what the weight of options in attack does is it just means that you can't have to pull your shape out. If you want to try and deal with us, you're going to have to try and pull your shape out if we're playing like this and if you want to have any progressive football at all. And that's why Allardyce did what Allardyce did, even though we should have been 2 down at half time. Pardew did what Pardew did, even though Liverpool could have took the chances. That's what you're pretty much left with. That's what teams up and down the country are now going to start doing, even at home.
They will, yeah, but that's not to say that we can't deal with that. You know, Bournemouth was an easy game for us, but we also just approached it better, like all the lads have said. And so, you know, if you're going to basically go out and say, well, we'll take 0 straight away, then we're sort of all the best with that, really, because there's so much firepower there. And I think what yesterday kind of proved to me is that, you know, the 4 lads that everyone's talking about, that's maybe a little bit unfair and Cop doesn't like it, but we've got to be getting at least 3 of them on the pitch, and I thought that was the mistake against Everton, as he only goes with 2, and
against Chelsea as well.
Yeah,
by the way.
and Chelsea we only end up with 2 of them, and I think if they're all fit, I think you've got to be at least 3 of them. I understand the need for rotation. We'll take it in turns, and then take it in, and then you've got lads like Oxlade-Chamberlain. There's Solanke you can use, or even, you know, even if you end up going with a bit more solid 4-3-3, that's kind of fine. But you got to get 3 of them on the pitch, and if they're all fit, it's imperative we do, because if we get at least 3 of them 4 stars on the pitch, I don't know, you can park as many buses as you like.
Yeah, I was just going to say, while we're on the subject of the Bournemouth thing, I remember, I had a feeling yesterday, we were chatting on our bus on the sort of way down about, you know, bets and games and stuff, and I was absolutely convinced more than any game that you would rip them to shreds yesterday, because they had the game at Old Trafford on Wednesday night. You've got the journey back, which is, I don't care what people say, it's, you know, it does have an impact, but I honestly can say I've never seen football played, not for 2 decades, in conditions that were that bad, and it was a proper leggy, horrible game. And even watching United yesterday, United started to empty from about sort of 70 minutes in yesterday, so I just had a feeling yesterday that would have an impact. But just the other thing on Bournemouth, and it's always wound me up this, as in, when did Eddie Howe become a thing? Right, to the point where on the other night, Eddie Howe at 40 was actually a programme that Sky, who charges money for this sort of stuff, right, decided to run. I mean, when did he become a thing that he's some kind of
He's
the
like
next,
a sort of
the next best?
a latter-day Alan Kirbishley for me. Where you know, they have I suppose you've got to give him some credit for getting Bournemouth into the league, but there is a thing about him, isn't there, as this progressive young coach, and there's been a few with him, but
he went to Burnley and bailed instantly. You know what I mean? He couldn't deal with it, and now he always, his name gets tagged. He's always in the odds when England managers come up. He's in that sort of 20 to 1 bracket when certain managers' jobs came up. I think he was even higher when Everton's job came up. I think he was something like 10s or something daft like that. But it's just this, you know, he's doing what a lot of managers have done, which he's come up. But I think he's one of the most tactically naive managers that
He
that
spent
there is in
decent
the league.
dough as well. If you
Yeah,
look at
totally.
them, like,
Absolute
I
fraud.
mean, a lot of it's come to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, by all means, Brad Smith's not really ripped it up.
Jordan Ibe
been
can't control the ball.
Jordan Ibe.
Better than Sterling, though. isn't he?
Firmino's touch, I was waiting for that one from somebody.
I know, yeah.
Firmino's touch for the second, Gareth, I want to talk about that in terms of that sheer quality, and that people will say it's fighting for a lost cause and all of that. Forget that for a second. The actual cushioned quality of it, I thought, was just different class.
Yeah, he's not just hooked it, has he, or boomed it, or just tried to keep it in. He's picking it out and putting it into an area, and fair play to Lovren for anticipating it and doing an old school dive and header, which I loved.
Yeah.
It's brave. It's brave, that wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was right in with the boots, and you got to give him some credit for that. I was made up for him, to be honest, because I mean, as much as I'll sort of have a pop at his inconsistency, seems like a nice lad, and it was a nice moment for him.
No, definitely. But yeah, you're right on the Firmino thing that it went a little bit amiss. Really, that is a great touch to get it back in the middle, because everyone was too busy about deciding whether it was in or not. And
It's
it
clearly
was.
in.
Yeah,
Clearly
it's fine. I mean, like
It didn't need 20 replays, did it? I mean,
No.
it looked out in real time, but it didn't need 20 replays afterwards.
No, it was bang on the line.
But it was a great. I mean, look, we talk about Firmino a lot, don't we? And he's still. A lot of people always talk about sort of work rate and all this sort of stuff, but he has got real quality as well, and it goes little bit amiss sometimes that the ability he's got. Even the header as well, I think's a good header. It's a good ball by Coutinho. The other day we were talking about Coutinho's balls into the box and moaning about them, saying his little chips don't work. Well, there's one for Firmino did, and there's one for Salah nearly did. And so maybe his radar was just a little bit off the other night, and maybe we were all angry because we'd just watched us draw with West Brom. But yeah, Firmino's absolute quality, so is Coutinho, and so are they all. And as you say, John, the more you get those on the pitch, the more you feel like Liverpool are going to get results.
The other thing on Firmino, Gareth, as well, is the damning of him with the praise about how hard he works. In the same way as he kept the ball in, and listen, we're all as guilty of that as anybody else. But
Ian Rush worked hard, didn't he? And everyone talks about his finishing, not about working hard. So you know what I mean. And there must come a point. He's got 13 now, hasn't he, Firmino? Which is more than he managed last season, and which is one less than Liverpool's top scorer for the whole of last season, Coutinho, with 14. So at some point we've got to start saying, well, actually he's not bad at putting the ball in the back of the net here, and that's why, like, you've got people like Sturridge when he's fit kicking around, not really getting a game. So yeah, he does deserve more praise, and you hear things as well as though he's like a bit of a pet for Jurgen Klopp as well. Sort of, oh yeah, he's his favourite player, and so he's the first name on the team sheet. But even that seems like you're damning him, almost like he's in the team because the manager likes him.
I think
he's in, at Hoffenheim, he got 20 odd goals in a season.
I was going to say,
and that's what he's on course for here.
The thing about Firmino, it's not something I've heard that about him being a sort of a Klopp pet, but I mean, Klopp didn't sign him.
No.
So there's no obvious reason to think that, other than the fact that he'd seen him playing in the Bundesliga, at a high level. I mean, for me, and I've said this a couple of times, probably a couple of weeks ago, I think Firmino is very much the facilitator to Salah getting 20 goals, and I'm not quite sure what the direct assist relationship is between them. But the way that Firmino plays creates Liverpool space, and that's the space that Mane, when he gets back to form, hopefully, but Salah just on a constant basis is exploiting. So yeah, I mean, I think he's brilliant. I just love watching him. And I wrote one of my pieces earlier this season. I mean, I half expect to find him in my bog every now and then, because he's just everywhere.
It's all right.
Yeah.
But the other thing, it's one of them, innit? John, the other thing about him though is that when it's leading from the front, and that's the other thing, is that it's an intensity to it, and what that means is,
I was just thinking about it too much, to be honest with you.
I'm still in shock.
Yeah, it's too brutal, John. Is that he's leading from the front, and the point about this is he's really, really good, and he's the hardest working player on the pitch, and that is where the quality and the work rate do combine. There's no and that was the thing about Liverpool yesterday, was the intensity, the quality, making the pitch seem so much bigger than Bournemouth could handle, and being first to everything. Firmino was part of that, Robertson was part of that, Henderson was part of that. You could see there was very much an attitude they were going to be first to everything.
Yeah, and Firmino leads that because of where he is. He's the furthest man up the pitch a lot of the time, and he's leading by example in terms of his work rate. And I think if you see a centre forward do that, well, you've got no excuses as a midfielder or whatever, or any other. If your centre forward's doing that, then you think, well, I've got to kind of step up as well, and that's why it's important, and that's why it helps Liverpool when he's up there playing number 9. he's all over the place, as Mike says. His movement, he's finding pockets of space. He's dragging defenders all over the place, and that helps the wide lads get into the spaces that they do. They just obviously love playing with him, don't they? He's a very selfless player, but then also he's getting goals, and so it's
a proper striker's head of that.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's in terms of where he is on the foot, where he is in the pitch. He's where you want a centre forward to be, kind of much more than maybe the other lads have been recently. You know, when Sturridge and Solanke have played, for example, who you class as proper centre forwards, I would argue that they're probably not there enough, and so you know he is a number 9, and I think that is his position. And you know, there's nothing really false about it anymore. He's just doing the business.
The intensity, Mike, from the outset in terms of, as I said before, winning the ball back. I thought Robertson had probably his best game for Liverpool. Henderson probably his best performance since Leicester away.
Yeah.
There was across the board really. Before we get on to Oxlade-Chamberlain, from 2 or 3 of them, Gomez I felt as well. They weren't going to lose. There was a lot of lads there who weren't going to lose their personal battle, I thought, on the pitch, and that again is something that's good to see.
Yeah, I'd actually made some notes for today just because there was so much to talk about in terms of the obvious candidates. But I've got a double tick against Clavan, Henderson, and Chamberlain. And Clavan, I think, is beginning to look increasingly assured. I've given him stick in the past, and you know, I suppose criticised him or reduced him to this £4 million Estonian centre half, and what you pay is what you get. And I actually think he's done really well in the last six or seven games. He looks solid, composed, reading things well, good in the air. But for me, I think the most encouraging thing, and again, there's been some doubts about Henderson recently, he looked back to his best there, but whether it was because he was playing in that more advanced position, as John said there, more third man running runs, if you like. But you think back to Henderson when he was at his best, it was the 2013-14 season where he was effectively playing as probably the fourth man in a front four at times, and he was making loads of runs, and I think he ended up with about 5 or 6 goals. And a criticism of him is that he doesn't get enough goals, because when he does, they tend to be worldies. You think back to Chelsea last season, but it was pretty much the only one he got. Now that's down to the fact that he's been employed predominantly as a 6 this season, but he was so much more advanced yesterday. And I think if you have the shield behind him that Wijnaldum offers, and I still like Wijnaldum. He had a funny game yesterday where I think it was one of those ones that if you were at the match, you saw a lot more of him. He seemed to be doing loads and loads of screening, loads of occupying space that cut off the passing angles, and yet he wasn't that visible. But I think quietly he had a really effective game, and I just think that surety behind Henderson allows Henderson to do more of what he's good at. And yeah, I was really encouraged at the way he played.
There was I thought there was like a spirit and a determination about him as well, though, straight from the off, in that like he was trying to make things happen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
He was very forward thinking with his passing. You know, John's mentioned before, he was following them in. He was getting in the box a couple of times and things like that. And I think one of the criticisms of him from his many doubters is that, you know, too often he's safe, and too often he'll shift it sideways or come back or slow it down, or, you know, not look for that. And I mean, it seems a silly thing to say, really, but, you know, even at the start of the game, it shone them in the tunnel. And, you know, you see players dicking about and high-fiving or cuddling each other and all this bollocks. He was stood at the front of that Liverpool team, looking like a fella who was going out to twat someone, basically.
Yeah.
And I thought, go on.
And
you know what I mean?
He was dead narky throughout the game as well.
And there was loads of talking yesterday as well, everywhere. Loads of them. You could see them talking. So I think what we said at the top of the show about it felt like it felt almost like, you know, wouldn't surprise me if in a day or two you see the other team meeting, you know, type thing, because that's what it felt like as though there was a big focus. Like, today we go out, we blow these away, we get a result, and we shut all the doubters up.
Yeah.
And I think Henderson led that.
And as the captain, and I know people sort of denigrate the captaincy now and say it's just a sort of, I don't know, some kind of figurehead role. It's not at all. I mean, it's Henderson's absolute responsibility to go out with that steely look and that steely attitude every single game, regardless of how well you're playing. And one of the criticisms I used to have of Gerrard is that in terms of his captaincy, when his game was off, so too was his captaincy. He didn't seem interested. He was too fixated on his own game if he was playing poorly on occasion. seemed disinterested, and I think it's a slightly different manifestation of that with Henderson. Whereas when he's not playing so well, he's just a bit quieter. But the attitude of him yesterday, and again, just referring back to that sort of 8 out of 10 thing or 6 out of 10, and where we fall down and where we have our inconsistency, it's his responsibility as captain of the club to carry that attitude onto the pitch week in, week out, regardless of whether he's feeling a foot injury, regardless of whether he's playing at the peak of his levels.
Completely agree with that. There is, you mentioned luck before, John. Defoe hitting the post was a bit of luck for us in terms of the time, and it would have just been at that point, having played as well as Liverpool had. It's casual in centre mid from Wijnaldum and Coutinho that allows the opportunity to break. They're on us. It was for the first time in a while. I did actually think, we've been a bit lucky there. I think the goalkeeper's out quick. I think he makes it harder for him than it needs to be. But it's still, it looked in from the minute it left Defoe's boot.
Yeah, he normally scores those, doesn't he? As you say, the keeper has done well when you see it from.
He noticed the angle well.
Yeah, when you see it from.
He's got to put it in the corner, hasn't he?
Yeah, when you see it from behind Defoe, you can see kind of how well he's done, really. But still, he nobody scores them. That's what he's done throughout his career. So yeah, we got a bit of luck about that. I mean, we've hit the post by then already, but that. Without him, who gives it away, doesn't he? And we just did that very few times throughout the game. I think they showed our pass completion rate after the game, and it was 88%. It was the second highest we've been all season. And when you consider what the lad said before about how we were trying to force it with our passing, how it wasn't the tipping around that we've seen in some home games where you think, oh come on, let's just get it forward. I thought our passing was very aggressive, was very ambitious. We were always looking to get him behind. Henderson especially, as I said, with his big switches, which had allowed Salah to get one-on-one and things like that. So the fact that we were all doing that, the manner way we were able to keep the ball, I think speaks very highly of the team. Because you look cold as well.
It did look cold, going back to what Steve said before about the conditions. One a little bit as well. Obviously, Firmino was just offside for the goal, but it's 4-0 at that point, and it's not necessarily a bit of luck. That does not even itself out over the course of the season. If the gods are listening to this, I want them to know that one doesn't count on the even themselves out. Other thing as well, Gareth, we haven't talked about him yet at all, really, but very briefly in dispatches is Oxlade-Chamberlain. For me, that was a performance where he announces himself on the pitch as a Liverpool player and off the pitch as a Liverpool player.
Yeah, really good. I thought the sort of moment that summed it up is where he dives into a great tackle to rob it from Ibe, drives forward and then he hit the post, and he was a bit unlucky with that. But he played well and he was everywhere, and he was another one that was providing that energy and options. And he said himself that afterwards that it's taken him a bit of time to settle in and realise what the manager wants, and it's a bit different from what Wenger wanted from him. But I think there's good signs there that he can be decent for us, that he can be a good Klopp player, because he's got loads of energy, he's got loads of strength, and if he can just add a few goals now as well, then you've got a player on your hands. And afterwards as well was absolutely brilliant, because Sky will be tabloid TV. We know that. We know what types of questions they will aim at managers and players. There's enough evidence of that over the years. But Coutinho's still someone who English not his first language.
Quiet lad.
He doesn't like doing interviews. He swerves interviews as a rule. But this is one of the interviews where they're contractually obliged to do it. It's straight after the game. The telly companies can say, we want X and Y. And so he's got to stand there and take the questions. He was clearly uncomfortable with the line of questioning he was getting. And for Oxlade-Chamberlain to just step in, nip it in the bud and say, I think you're out of order for asking that. Brilliant, that's what you want to see. That's a proper teammate. That's a bit of leadership there, and that really bodes well. And he's rightly got loads of praise for doing that.
Do you know what I found interesting?
He's another one that seems like a nice lad.
What I found interesting about that was that even before he steps in and rescues Coutinho from that awkward situation, I was thinking to myself, he's a bright lad. He was talking really well. He was talking realistically about the challenge that he faced becoming a Liverpool player, and that it's taken some time to settle down. But I just thought, this is an intelligent guy. And what I was thinking along with that is the way that Liverpool, but not all clubs, will personality profile players before they sign them. And I saw a really interesting interview with Robertson on LFC TV earlier in the week as well, and he came across as a real sort of fun-loving person, but also very, very intelligent. Spoke very well. Spoke with a real insight about the game, and talked about his Scotland career and everything. And I just thought to myself, he'd be good in the dressing room, speaking English or Scottish as his first language. So the two of them, I think really impressive, and what he does there, stepping in, just showed a level of maturity. Really, I mean, he's only 23.
Yeah, and he's quite a new lad at the club.
Yeah, and to be acting like a senior player in that interview, I spoke volumes for him. I really thought that was impressive.
Yeah, and on the pitch as well, I agree with the lads. A really good performance from him. I think it's now a while since you can say he's had a bad game, really. I mean, the end product thing is maybe still a bit of a worry, because I think if the lads ahead of him aren't scoring, then you're starting to think, well, is he doing enough? Wijnaldum suffers from that as well. He's another one, isn't he? Whereas we're able to go, he's quietly had a good game there, but if we're only 1-0, then you want him to more loudly have a good game. Yeah. And I think Oxlade-Chamberlain will maybe start to struggle with that. It's all right being a bit of an impressive cog.
Yeah, the biggest concern on him there is that his numbers at Arsenal, playing, not all the time, but knocking up 30 appearances a season. His numbers in terms of goals, not so much assists. I don't know what his assists stats are, but his goals, he doesn't get enough goals, and I don't think that's going to disappear overnight, and he has to work on it. But his actual stats on yesterday's games, it was most tackles for Liverpool, most interceptions, most this, that and the other, high passing accuracy. I thought in the first half there was a couple of times he gave the ball away a little bit too readily for me, but then he grew into the game. And as we're all saying, I think that was probably his best game for us.
Good signs are coming to form when we're about to play Arsenal as well.
Yeah.
Imagine the piss that'll get boiled if he scores there.
Indeed, though I suspect he won't start that one, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. I mean, Liverpool now have conceded 5 goals from open play since Tuesday the 26th of September in all competitions, which comes back to what was being said before about Lovren and about Klavan. Matip in there as well, and also Gomez playing reasonably well. The 2 goalkeepers have been playing reasonably well, both of them. I think it's worth saying they've been playing reasonably well. But also
makes a good save yesterday as well. I think it was another one of these ones where it just gets described on commentary by the commentators hate goalies union as a smart save. I mean, it's a good solid save. It's a strong hand. He gets it out of danger. Yeah. That's not a smart save. That's a good save. It's a critical save.
It is a critical save. Liverpool, as I say, unbeaten in 12 as well, and it's interesting to have got Steve in today, because it's also a little bit reminiscent of you lot last season, where you were unbeaten for 6 months. I think we're getting a couple more wins, but we are also drawing too many, not as many as you last season. And it does seem to be, reminiscent to this sort of, you can't quite tell how good and significant that sort of run is at times, either until the end of the season or maybe even the season after, where you get to go, this is a point where a football team's becoming a proper football team.
Yeah, I mean, that situation that we were in last year, I mean, we were in 6th for about 5 months, and I think we went 27 games unbeaten just to stay 6th, which showed you exactly what you just referred to. I think you need a couple of things in your squad. Something Ferguson was he always used to talk about was, you've got your starting 11, and again, sort of keep bringing it up, but that treble team does sort of represent the point I'm about to make here, which is you got your first 11, but then when you look at who came in when either they needed a break or you just needed to change things around a little bit or bring someone off the bench, it had every right to be there almost by right in the first place, you know what I mean? And I think what's, we're finding with a lot of these sort of sides now sometimes is, the sort of top, the top 4 or 5 on their day are probably all as good as, City are out there, but certainly the 4 that come after that are as good as each other on the day. What tends to set them apart, and what I think starts to make somebody 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, is what happens when you have to start moving people about and start bringing people in, whether it be for injuries. I think what's been interesting this year, I know we're going to talk about United in a bit, but certainly from our point of view, we're just better managed. Tactically better managed. We've got an incredibly tactically aware manager than we've had before. So, when you've got managers getting into players' heads and helping them to make better game decisions and better on the pitch decisions, that makes hell of a difference.
That's what's grabbing me, Gareth, about this thing about only conceding 5 goals from open play since the 26th of September. I mean, people can have a little bit of an argument over what does or doesn't constitute open play, but put that to one side for a second. The point about this is Liverpool's set up, when it's working pretty brilliantly, and there's maybe a bit of a question mark both in terms of in the dugout and on the pitch about what's happening when it stops working for a couple of minutes. But when it's working, it's been terrific. It really has. And there's the number of games where we've come out where the opposition have only managed 0 or 1 shot on target or something like that. We've managed 8 or 9. It's back to this, what he wants with this Liverpool manager right now, he wants them to be a whole team, and that at times I think that can be a bit difficult for us to watch. We would like to see defenders defend, midfielders midfield, and forwards. Whereas he's very into his team ethic, as is Guardiola, all of this sort of stuff. And I think, when you're looking at that sort of return in terms of goals that you concede and being unbeaten in 12, I think it does suggest that things are very much moving in the right direction. It's just whether or not it's happening fast enough.
Yeah, and that's always the question, isn't it? And it's encouraging at the moment, and they're playing good football. They're setting records in terms of scoring shitloads of goals away from home. I guess the question's still to be answered when teams do completely and utterly try and park the bus, and particularly at Anfield now, there's a little bit of doubt because too many draws basically at Anfield. But it does feel like I was sort of taking a bit of a step back and trying to have a think about it in terms of not just doing I'm pissed off about that game and now I'm all right again because we've just won one. I was trying to think about the squad a little bit more yesterday, and I was thinking, it doesn't feel like it's, that far off, because, all of a sudden now I think you got two left backs there now who, all right, I know some people, Moreno's not the cup of tea and all that sort of stuff, but I'd still say he deserves credit for how he was playing before he got injured, and he's not the dope from the other season, or he doesn't seem to be. Robertson's just had his best game there, so all of a sudden the left side looks okay. The right side, Gomez been brilliant, sent loads of promise. Then centre half,
and no Klein, by the way. We're forgetting literally
forgetting about Klein. Yeah,
second best right back in England.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of a sudden you're like, well, where are problems? And you'd still like a centre half, of course, and we're being linked again with Virgil van Dijk, and that'd be lovely because he is a big colossus, and I think he would improve us. Whether we can get it done and whether Liverpool want to pay 70 million quid and whether Southampton will back down on that fee remains to be seen. But there are options now. I mean, it's not long ago that, well, it's last season. That last season he's turned into the bench and it's got Ben Woodburn on it every week. And then all of a sudden now you're looking at the bench and you're bringing Lallana on. And he doesn't really do much yesterday. He still looks like he's got a little bit to go. But, you got Ings kicking about as well. You got Solanke there who needs a goal, but, all of a sudden that bench looks
never
a lot stronger. And do you reckon?
He's never going to score.
He just needs one to go enough as arse, the old chestnut, I think.
We're not going to be saying that, but he's played 32.
Yeah. Does feel a little bit like that with him, doesn't it? But
he's got tons of promise, not scored for 4 years.
But look,
he does look really good. I'm not just saying, he's just never going to score. I felt so sorry for him yesterday.
I know. It does feel that way for him. But yeah, I mean, it feels like a good time for Liverpool, and just one of them, like, where do we go? I think what John said before was spot on, in that you sort of feel again that it's a little bit of a crossroads, and like, where did he go from here? Like, what are they going to do in January? Like, what will happen with the Coutinho situation? How good are we going to be at hanging on to our top players as well? I mean, the more that Salah's doing what he's doing, the more he's going to get noticed. I don't think it's coincidental that, like Zidane starts talking about him and things like that. These things happen. There's no secrets around world football, and there's no secrets about who's got money and who can potentially tempt players away. So Liverpool have just got to get a stronger resolve. And, even like someone like Coutinho, you just watch the performance like that. Like, is it absolutely nailed on that he's going? Because if it isn't, let's sit the fella down. Let's see if there's something that can be done. Offer him more money. Offer him a better deal. But, buy him a sun lamp or something. So, whatever. Just anything that might make a difference to him staying.
Loan your vouchers.
You know what I mean? Let's try and keep our players, and because it's still doing my head in watching Sterling.
Do you know what's really interesting on this point? I put a tweet out yesterday saying, give him the captaincy and put £300,000 a week on the table, and the amount of Liverpool fans who came back, he wants to go, mate, he wants to go, it's all done and dusted, and that fatalism.
What? Yeah, exactly.
I just
can't. You Robbo's sun lamp here.
No, exactly. It's a belter. I wouldn't mind getting under it with him. But no, I mean, and Liverpool as a football club as well need. Hopefully they've already done it. If they haven't already done that, that's just insane. And I'd also ask whose job it is as well. Personally, for me, it's the manager's job to be doing that, to be selling Liverpool as a vision, to say you can become a Liverpool legend. And we've said this about Suarez before.
Well, he has said that in the past. He has said that in the past. Klopp and Coutinho, before it all kicked off last summer, he literally referenced it. He referenced that Jurgen Klopp had said, if you stay here, they'll build a statue of you.
Exactly.
And then 3-4 weeks later.
So the question is that message being reiterated? Are Liverpool giving up on it? Are Liverpool actually actively thinking we'd like that money? Because for me, listening to him in the couple of shortish and relatively restricted interviews he's given, it sounds to me as though he's going in January. He's certainly fishing. He's fishing for a deal in January. He's talking about enjoying every single game at the moment and obviously putting it in, which he is. But I don't think there's any assurances from our point of view that he's not going in January.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just on the back of what Robbo said about this period that's coming up for Klopp is absolutely critical for him and for, because I think he's, you know my thoughts. I'm quite open about the fact I'd rather you didn't win anything, but it doesn't change my life if you do. But I'm looking in on the outside in a kind of with a level head on it all, and I'm thinking it's a big period coming up for him. He's gonna have to demonstrate what he hasn't done yet, which is to bring people in where he needs it. Because I think what he's done is he's brought better in areas that were all right, but he certainly hasn't plugged some of the gaps that absolutely are going to prevent Liverpool from going on to the next level. So that's one point. His ability to keep these people, such as Coutinho, you mentioned Salah, who's just gone through the ceiling in terms of performance and status. Being able to create a belief that this is the right place for him to fulfil his ambitions. Nobody's asked about having a statue. People want to leave a football career with trophies and medals, and that's one thing that Liverpool haven't been able to do a good enough job of. In the last couple of years, I don't know. I think it's 1 or 2 trophies in the last decade or something daft like that. But these players will stay if they believe that they're going to fulfil their ambitions at Liverpool, and if they don't, then that's ultimately where you've got to start expecting that they're going to move on elsewhere. And I think that's then when you're going to look at the manager and say, maybe you're not the right person for this job.
There's something in the idea, though, John, of the importance of keeping your head. And the manager's talking about it a lot. He said, he believes in doing the right things in every game. Momentum, he doesn't necessarily believe in it, though I think there's a separate conversation there about what it does to supporters when he talks about supporters. But instead, let's just sort of concentrate on the football side. But this is where sort of the wider sort of Liverpool supporting thing, keeping our heads, being calm. I mean, Spurs have conceded 3 from set pieces in the last 4, and the goalkeeper's got holograms for hands. And no one loses. No one goes mental about it. Spurs have just been done 4-1 at City, and everyone's just sort of shrugged their shoulders. It's partially because of where the season is with City and all of that sort of stuff, but it's also that Spurs are best suited to being allowed to just get on with the job of being Spurs out of these six sides who are all going for that top 4. There is, we are unbeaten in 12. We have only conceded 5 from open play in 17. We're doing things right. It's just whether or not it's right enough and happening fast enough.
Yeah, and there's also what I said right at the start, which is you're not sure what you're gonna get next. So we could all go around the table now, including Steve, and say, what do you expect from Liverpool at at Arsenal in terms of performance, in terms of results, and you could all just say different things, and you could all make a case. And they'd be equally believable. I could go out and say that I just think we're just going to absolutely tear them apart. We'll go there high tempo. We've got a nice period of rest. The front lads are flying. They're all score. Arsenal don't look much cop. 3-4-0, and you could all go, yes, sound. Or I could go, do you know what we'll do? We might just go a bit flat, and we might have a bad period, and they'll have a bit on top, and they'll score from it, and Lovren will have another Mary member him at Tottenham, and you could all go, yes, sound. And so it's... And anything in between as well. It could be 3-3 and both teams play well.
And this is why Friday is the acid test, because, ultimately last season Liverpool had great results against the top sides, but couldn't dismiss enough of the poor sides. This season, generally speaking, we've done well against the poorer sides, notwithstanding West Brom and Everton and Anfield in the last fortnight. But it was always going to be a challenge, because you weren't going to get 5 wins and 5 draws against the top, the top 6, if you like. And this, looking at the results in the big games. So you look at the 2 comparative games that we've had to the match on Friday is City and Spurs away, and we've lost them 5-0 and 4-1. So this is why it's the acid test. It's the test is to take that intensity, take that confidence and aggression into the game on Friday. And Klopp speaks about momentum and rhythm. We've got it. Don't sacrifice it. And I just looked at obviously we've got 5 or 6 games coming up, which is the arse end of this glut of games, if you like. To me, Arsenal, you go strong. Then you've got Swansea, where you can rotate a bit. Then Leicester, decent side, Leicester on the day, you go strong against them. Then you've got Burnley away, which is a tough game, but I still think you can rotate. And the reason you rotate is that 3 days after that, you've got Everton again in the Cup. And that's an imperative win, because that's our most realistic chance of winning a trophy this season.
And we just need to batter them.
So, and you often talk, Neil, about, sort of looking at a whole selection of games and having a plan in place. Well, there's your plan. And I people might argue with me that Burnley might be one you go stronger than, say, against Leicester. But if I'm sitting down and looking at that as those 6 games as a piece, then I've got my plan in place, and Klopp's got to have that in place too. That's his job.
Okay, really good for Mike and Steve to come in today, because we want to talk about a new thing that they're both working on together, working for a company called Fansbet and Redsbet. And on that, I want Steve, if you want to explain to our listeners what the idea is behind the Fansbet model.
Yeah, basically it's a simple model of it's a betting site that has a bit of a difference in which the company that I've been asked to lead, and it's a great honour to be asked to lead it. We share our net profits back out to football fans and within the football fan community for causes, either fan causes or causes that matter to fans the most. The idea has been born out of some fanatical football fans based in Norway who've been historically involved in casino, poker, and various other aspects of the gaming industry. Football fanatics. I've known them for a while, and they came up with this concept a while back. Now I've been sat for the last sort of 29 years, and certainly in the last year of that as a senior global director in a very, very well-known global brand.
It's important that everyone knows that Steve Armstrong is like Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, when I'm not getting paid money, when I'm getting paid money to be responsible, I can do it. And
then all the time stood outside Old Trafford selling United stands.
Yeah, absolutely.
I reckon Batman's less likely to wear black than Steve, isn't it? Even Batman added the dash of colour every now and again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as I said to somebody the other day, I'll keep wearing black until someone invents a darker colour. Yeah, they've obviously approached me because they believe passionately in this idea, and they want somebody who can bring this to life. And I think when you look at the concept of, ultimately having somebody who's been involved at a high level from a business and from a strategic point of view, certainly that's something I've done for a long time. I've been involved in fan culture through United We Stand, whether it be writing for it, selling it, travelling with it, and even talking about it on podcasts for a number of years now. And I think as well, having the ability to sort of be balanced, not just within your own fan community, but across the football fan community as a whole, that was important. But also, everybody knows, I like betting. I'm part owner of a couple of horses. I love everything about the enjoyment and the satisfaction that you can get from enjoyable gambling, which again I'll touch on in a bit. And yeah, it was a great honour to be asked to lead that. So I've been appointed to take this on board. The concept is a simple one: Fansbet. We're not asking people to suddenly take up gambling because of it. We're saying if you don't want to gamble, don't. But if we're saying, like half the country probably will do, I think some like 48% of people in the country have had a bet in the last month. We're saying if you're going to do it, come and do it with us, because if you win, great stuff. You'll walk away with your winnings like you would from any bookie. But what will happen if you don't is that a proportion of that will get put aside in a fans foundation, and that will go to good fan causes. And that's what the concept of the whole business is all about. So, we're talking about as much as 50%. So we're willing to share 50% of our net revenue, our net profit back out to football supporting communities. And it isn't just about giving cash away either. And we're not giving cash away. What we're saying to people is we're sharing back our net profit for you to do things that really matter to you. So, examples of how that will work could be very, very simple. We're looking for clubs to come on board with us as partners and beneficiaries, whether it be branches, whether it be supporters clubs, trusts, associations, whether it be certain aspects of fan media, because we think along the lines of, as do I, that there's enough. I come from an era where football fans were appallingly treated, and that's right the way through the 70s into the 80s, demonised by Thatcher and a government. And obviously, it came to a tragic conclusion with what happened in Sheffield in 89. But, when you look at how football fans are treated now in terms of the experience, it's a different world. But I think when you apply the revenue that's available in the game and how much of that goes towards fan experiences, fan causes, there's an argument to say that we're badly treated still, given what's available to us and the revenue within the game. I think a lot of there's so much more that could be done with the fan community and with good fan causes. So, we think that we've got a really good business model here, and giving fans the opportunity to not just take revenue from a betting company, but ultimately be the judge and jury as to where that goes to as well. So we're giving not just revenue back out to fan causes, but we're giving the ability to make decisions. We're giving them the autonomy to determine what a good cause is for them. And we think that we've got something that can make a massive, massive difference to football fan communities across the country, but also, football fan areas where football really, really matters.
And Mike, you're moving over to work full time on the Reds Bet side of this, the side that deals with Liverpool Football Club.
What kind of lamp did you get?
A big one, yeah. Coutinho's lamp. Oh no, so it wasn't Coutinho. Was it
Coutinho's in a good city for keeping his tan up. Let's face it.
Ample outlets, yeah.
Tannereef.
You've come over from your job as well, in a senior management role, to come and be sort of look after the LFC brand, the Reds Bet angle of this, and it's something that you want to do because again it's back to having a conversation around community and football and trying to find new, positive, innovative ways to empower that.
Yeah, and basically, with Fansbet being the overarching company, already in creation, that Steve knows a lot about is Red Army Bet, which is the United franchise, for want of a better word, and I've been recruited to sort of lead up on Reds Bet, which is going to be a very Liverpool-centric aspect of Fansbet. So I'm just really excited about the whole notion of giving so much back into our own fan community causes. And, I've yet to start in the job. I don't start until January, but I've already got visions that some aspects of our supporter base, and it's my job really to grow the business and get people to sign up and have some fun with RedsBet. But, potential beneficiaries might be, Alder Hay, it might be the Owen McVeigh Foundation, it might be an hour for others, all causes that are well known amongst the Liverpool fan community. If supporters clubs want to come on board and promote our brand amongst their own members, then potential for us to reinvest money back into things like supporters travel to games, things like that. There's no end to the possibilities where we can be giving something back into causes that matter to Liverpudlians. Steve, do you want to chip in there?
Yeah. I was just going to say, he's made a reference to Fansbet is the overall organisation, but for our bigger clubs that are out there, we will provide like a unique branded site that is. So, for example, Red Army Bet exists for United. Reds Bet is the only other brand that exists for Liverpool, so that's up and running now. And it is obviously a branded site. We are also offering, branded app. Michael, daft bets, little special bets that you can do every night that you're not going to get on other bookies, better odds and all that kind of stuff.
She loves the Scouse clock.
Well, that actually didn't come in, sadly, but that was for Liverpool to score an added time winner against Chelsea. Fans of
She
Cop
loves
Chance.
the Scouse clock.
Yeah, indeed.
Absolutely wild.
Pretty much the best thing that's happened to me in 2017. She loves the Scouse clock.
Indeed.
Chelsea sent by on Red Army Bet was a pretty good one.
And one of yesterday's specials came in and lost us some money, which will go back into fans' causes, and that was Bourne Supremacy, which is Liverpool to win the game 2-0, not 2-0, but to win the game 2-0. And I've just been having loads of fun. I've been writing the
You've been
specials.
enjoying your puns, haven't you?
I have indeed, and I've spent this morning writing up the Arsenal specials.
The thing is, though, is just to bring, the idea is to have some fun with this because having a good bet, it's part of match day culture. It's a very, very much a big part of culture in the country anyway, whether it be having a bet. You can bet on anything now, but there's a couple of serious sides to this that we're absolutely conscious of, and I'm committed to doing a number of things with this. It's the obvious business model of creating something that gives us the opportunity to give back to great causes in the fan community. And just to give you a couple of other examples, when we've been out and about talking to other clubs, and one of the, I come from a part of North Manchester where I had nothing, and I grew up in a rough part. And this isn't some kind of sob story or anything like that, but I do think it's more to the point of I'm trying to get across the sense of community really, really does matter to me, and the whole piece around giving back. So anything that involves giving back to things that matter is always a big thing for me. But when you've been out and about chatting to other supporters groups and other supporters trusts, it's been unbelievably inspiring just listening to some of the ideas that are out there. And, we met, Leeds are a classic example, as are Glasgow Rangers. When you look at the way those clubs' fans have been treated, putting whatever you might have, your view of that might be as a football fan to one side for a minute. When you actually look at it, they've got a real strong cause. They actually want to use revenue potentially to get a foot in the door of the club, get shares and get a seat where their voice can get really, really matter. But then when you listen to other stories, like we've talked to clubs who they've got ex-players whose graves are a mess and they want to tidy those up. Sheffield United have got this brilliant scheme called Tickets for Kids, and that's what they want to use Fansbet revenue to do. Tickets for Kids is basically using money generated through Fansbet to give tickets to kids from really underprivileged backgrounds in Sheffield to give them free access to the stadium. When you listen to those kind of stories out there, we're not saying we're ultimately a betting company, but the reality of it is with us, if you win, great. If you lose, if you do it with another a bookmaker, they'll just keep it like they would do and invest it in marketing and shareholders and various other things. We're making a commitment to do really, really good things like some of those things that you've just heard. Another example of that is obviously, the safe standing issue, which has been gathering in real momentum across football. And very, very much so in this city as well, with the SOS vote on it a couple of months back. But as you know, Shrewsbury Town have been quite active in progressing their rail seating plan, and it sort of sits outside a little bit of the process of Fansbet, but we made a donation of their final 12 grand to get them up and running with that. So I guess it further emphasises the fact that our commitment is absolutely about using the enjoyment aspects of online gaming, but also giving fans the opportunity to do something with the revenue that so that it goes to things that really, really matter to them.
Yeah, and just one last point, just picking up on what Steve said there about Tickets for Kids, that is something that the people at Sheffield United have spoken to us about, is that, that's a particular thing in Liverpool, isn't it? That our disenfranchised generation, not many children going to Anfield, not many children being able to afford to go to Anfield, or their parents to take themselves and their kids to the match. So any of the Liverpool groups that I hope to engage with from January, if they wanted to nominate a Ticket for Liverpool Kids scheme as to be one of our beneficiaries, then that's absolutely something I'd want to look to explore. And more than anything else, if you've had enough of Ray Winston bleating on at you at half time, or you're sick of seeing Chris Kamaris running around his cafe, then you won't have to do that anymore. You probably just have to listen to me, and hopefully we can engage you with the Liverpool special bets. There'll always be really, really attractive odds on Liverpool as well. And that's something that will be not just a laugh, but something for someone who likes to bet to really get hold of.
I think the other aspects of this that's really key here as well is this piece around about, our motto is that it's about fans, it's by fans, and it's for fans, and it always will be. And that's got to stretch through other aspects of the business. And Mike coming on board, the reason for that is because we wanted Liverpool fans to run a Liverpool aspect to this. We want United fans to run the United bit. We want people in Sheffield to take care of the Sheffield part access. We will only recruit fans. That's one other point. The other thing is a lot of betting companies are spending fortunes on advertising, on marketing. We don't want to do that. All right, we'd rather use the foot soldier mentality of John telling his mate here, do it with Fansbet because, and hope that foot soldier mentality will spread enough for us to not be investing that amount of money into marketing and various other things. But one thing we will absolutely be committed to as well is spending what marketing and advertising and awareness driving that we want to do, doing it in fan areas as well, advertising in fanzines, not on the telly, advertising on podcasts and fan media, not on radio, and you really helping to keep those aspects alive as well, because those things exist for a reason. Those things exist because people still feel the need that's the only place where fans can have a voice and can have a say in what goes on at their football club.
And for us, I think it's about community per se, but it's about fan community and the things that are dear to the hearts of football supporters. And my role at RedsBet will be to do that with among Liverpool supporters exclusively. Whereas Fansbet is the wider thing.
Okay, fansbet.com then, if you want to join in and be part of this process. As said before, this isn't about looking for new punters. It's if you're currently someone who is interested in gambling as a regular bet, feel free to get over to redsbet.com. You've heard everything that these two chaps who've been contributing to what we do for years are up to, who are people that voices that you're used to, and also therefore we feel as though you can back their reputations in this. Getting back to the football, getting back to the league picture. United stay tidy win at West Brom. Doing a very good job of winning the games that you should be winning. The Derby performance / approach notwithstanding.
Derby was weird actually because I, in the grimness of selling mags outside in the second worst weather I've had to deal with in 20 years of selling mags, only bettered by the following Wednesday, which was just rotten. But the Derby performance was an odd one because when I heard the team, I thought, God, that's going for it. That you got Lingard in midfield, you got this Martial, Rashford, and Lukaku up front thing, which you've heard me talk about before. So to see that team and then send it out in a defensive, almost playing like an away team mentality was just one of Mourinho's very, very rare tactical cock-ups, I thought. So, that was one part. Getting back in the saddle the other night, it was one of them games where just win it, get out of there. It was an horrible match, horrible conditions, just get your win and get out of there. And then obviously to back that up again yesterday, it was an okay-ish performance. What was really quite interesting yesterday was, and someone else has picked up on this, if you actually look at the starting 11, 6 of them were Ferguson players yesterday.
Yeah.
2 of them were Van Gaals. There was even a Moyes in there. And then you're talking just two of Jose Mourinho's in Lukaku and Matic. So you can probably get to sort of see where some of the prickliness that occasionally is seeping its way out of in terms of Mourinho is coming from. And when he gets prickly, he gets it. He wants to tell the whole world about it. But it was a tough day for us yesterday. You've got West Brom trying to impress the new manager. They were all right, but United never really. It was only when the tank started to empty, sort of 75, 80 minutes in, that you thought, oh well, are we gonna chuck it in here? But we hung on, and it was a decent win. And and to your point, it's yet another win under the board, 13th out of 18 this season, which is in any other season, it'd be no mean feat. That.
It's Gareth for me. You're looking at the table now after every game. It was Spurs' points to drop points. Spurs' turn to drop points this weekend. Got themselves completely outclassed in the process, but. It is, you're looking at everyone really, and you go, really, to me, this one looks like it is going to go so close to the wire. Every point matters. Professionalism matters, really, because it must be hard for some of these players in terms of the fact that they all want to try and win a title. United's players want to try and win a title. Liverpool's players want to try and win a title. And yes, United are best placed to catch City if they slip. But everyone else now is just sort of trying to catch United, really and it is a strange situation we've got into where you do feel as though we're all locked into a battle to see firstly who's going to come top 4, but secondly who's winning the right to be the second best team in the country.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, it's weird to have a Liverpool manager, to be honest. Basically conceding, the title. We want to be up there fighting for it. If we're all being honest, and we've got our rich history and everything else. But
a Liverpool manager who's unbeaten in 12, having to say.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's totally realistic, isn't it? The gap's absolutely huge. I mean, all the stats are permanently around you about how they're breaking records, about how no one's come back from this far back to win it, being in second place or lower. And so, and all the thing, the other week, loads of people kept saying, or it felt like loads of people kept saying, oh, City will have a slip though, won't they? City will have a period. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen, does it? They're getting better and better, if anything, and they get they're getting different types of wins. They've had the period where they've scraped a load of late winners and things like that, which shows like a spirit to the side. And so as hard as it is to big them up and watch it all unfold, I think it's realistic to say that everyone else is second to 4th or second to 5th or whatever, battling it out between themselves. But you're right in that there's no room to manoeuvre, and that's why. Look, some people have slaughtered us or even me in particular over being worried about the league table and being worried about where Liverpool are in it and being worried about dropping points against shite like Everton and West Brom. But the reason for that is that tightness, is that it's going to be the same at the bottom as well, by the looks of it. So it's really interesting for anyone in the world who is actually a neutral. I don't know who those neutrals ever are, by the way. They always go on about neutrals. Who's neutral? If you're really into footy, you're neutral. Yeah.
Even that, no. I think there's another angle to it as well. For me, obviously the aim is to get top 4, so you have another year in Champions League football, and consolidating the Klopp project, if you like, has to be based on another year of Champions League football if you're going to heap hold of Salah, for example, and or Coutinho. But the other side of it is if you can embed yourself in second and you're clear of the team in 6th, Liverpool's priority is really in terms of winning cups this season or putting silverware on the table at the FA Cup and the Champions League. So it offers you more scope to do that rotation, the rotation that Benitez was pilloried for when he'd occasionally lose a game because he thought, well, I can win the European Cup, I can't win this league, I'm 7th.
Mourinho did it last season with the
and ended up with 2 cups, to our disgust, if you like. But there are parallels. I mean, we're at the moment on what we call history. We're talking about 2005-06, where Chelsea had about what was the record?
Played 22, won 20, drawn one, lost one.
Yeah, so I mean that's even better than City to this point, albeit that they've not lost yet. So. Yeah, I mean, of course, the teams and managers and players are going to be professional about it. But for me, there's that extra aspect. If you can get yourself a bridgehead ahead of the teams that you're vying for fourth with, then you can rest players before the Champions League tie. You can rest players. You can actually play your stronger team in the FA Cup and think, well, actually, we'll be all right if we get a point in this league game. And I think that's the critical thing for me.
There is also like the journey thing, though, as well, isn't it? Because you think about and I know people hate talking about or listening to this, and I hate saying it as well, but I'll do it one more time. So 13-14, we know what happened, but we also know it was a great season and Liverpool played really well. But what was important for the way they started that season is what they did the season before.
Yeah.
And now the second half of that season in particular.
The 6-0s at Newcastle and all that.
They found the rhythm, players were understanding each other, and it felt like you're on a journey going somewhere. And that's what Liverpool need to do with this season. Okay, the title is now obviously out of reach, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with going deep into all the competitions, finishing as high as you can in the league, getting that rhythm, persuading those players. Down. Yeah, exactly, and then starting next season out the blocks, flying, everyone buzzing, everyone believing in the side. And we didn't start this season that way. We started it with doubts, loaded with doubts, all of us players, I reckon, as well. And the way the transfers went and all that knocked our collective confidence
and
as well.
Let's face it, doubts that are occasionally still resurfacing.
Yeah.
Not least in the last
season after all and that Watford, didn't we?
But you never get a brilliant season out the blue. Even that Leicester one, they had the run to stay up, didn't they? The 4 months, which was Champions League form. So even their kind of freak league win was a little bit in the making, and so I guess that's the way you've got to think. Even if Man City did the hard yards last year, when Guardiola was getting criticised for not being too rigid, for not having a plan B, for not adapted enough to the Premier League. He stuck to his guns, and they had a lot of disappointing performances and results last season. But he stuck, fair play, he stuck with it, and they're getting the results now.
Yeah, the only thing that stuck out to me at Old Trafford against them lot was they didn't play very well. Contrary to popular belief, they didn't play well at all. And if you actually look at it, they didn't massively trouble our goalie, but the 2 goals came from massive cock-ups from United's defence. So they're definitely a team that, on their day, they're sensational to watch. I don't tend to watch them if I can, because I just get annoyed. But I saw about 25-30 minutes of the Tottenham game, and there was some sensational stuff being played, there's no doubt about it, but people can get them. But I think what always, I guess a little bit of hope for everybody, even though I don't think it's going to turn into anything, second half of season, you've kind of got that history of, well, we've played these ones now, we know what we're dealing with. So you get that element of people sort of go into it a little bit. I think people after 5, 6, 7 games think, we're going to have a go here and then they get absolutely smashed. I think something that, people work you out, and then if they're good enough to tactically come up against something to nullify that, then, you can get some daft results. The other thing that comes into play in the second half of the season is the different mentality of sides trying to stay up, and judging by the bottom 6 or 7, that looks like it could be quite a tight little group. So suddenly you're coming up against your big games more often than not, aren't your local derbies or whoever is in second. You end up with a ton of them because you're playing against teams fighting for that life. And, you get that kind of quality of unknown part as well coming into the second part of the season. So I think it's absolutely too early to be, I think for any side to be saying it's home and hosed and it's done and dusted yet. It would take an absolutely spectacular collapse. But I absolutely don't think it is. I think if they get sort of through the first 4 or 5 games into sort of early to mid-Feb, and it's just this juggernaut's just carrying on, then it is absolutely game over. And I think
I sort of broadly agree with Steve. I don't think they're coming back to anyone, but I'd be very surprised if they go through the season unbeaten, and then come February you face that twin challenge of winning the European Cup is big for them. Just generally speaking, they've never won it. It's big for their owners as well. And what they'll be hoping to do is to be able to put themselves in a position where they can prioritise Champions League games, because they've got that cushion at the top. But it's a cushion. I think we're 18 points behind. I couldn't believe it, actually. I looked at the league yesterday. I couldn't believe we were 18 points behind them. But you look at the games that they've won and the points that they've dropped. It's not really a surprise. Liverpool are operating at your standard Champions League form of 2 points a game, which is all fine and dandy.
If this carries on, they're going to end up selling some games out soon.
Next load of games are significant. To tell you what, he's took that quite well, I felt. Next load of games are quite significant. Chelsea,
He was all right until Mike Nevin said about them winning the Champions League, and then that's it.
Yeah. No,
You know that bit where your mouth fills with...
I think I'll be getting me P45 after the show.
Give your lamp back.
Just dead quick, John. Just to end us here. Chelsea, Spurs, and United have all got tricky aways. Well, the same weekend we go to Arsenal. Spurs are off to Burnley. Chelsea are going to Everton. Should be a tricky away. We'll see. United are going to Leicester. It's a reminder, isn't it? Just this little bank of games there. Someone's dropping points there. One of Arsenal and Liverpool have simply got to, maybe both. And you'd fancy that one of the other three are going to drop points as well, realistically.
Yeah, and it's the period where we'll have to see whether Jurgen Klopp's rotation, extreme rotation, if you like, compared to his rivals, will pay off. This the period where you're hoping that we'll look a little bit fresher than everyone else because we have rotated more statistically, far more than our rivals. We've got the big squad. There's players who've been brought in. You'd think almost for this period, you weren't getting much of a look in first couple of months, and this is where you're hoping our legs will allow us to pick up more points than our rivals. We'll have to wait and see on that. But there's people are making noises already. Even Guardiola before the Tottenham game was saying, "Well, we're going to need the crowd there because." The players are tired. I mean, they didn't look tired, but it's telling.
The absolute opposite tired.
But it's telling that
was unreal.
Yeah, but they're telling that they're saying that, if you like, and so it is going to come into play. We'll just have to see how much. But you can still be fresh and crap.
You can still be fresh and crap. Quickly, who's finishing top four, Mike? Not that bothered by the order.
Okay, City, United, Liverpool, and
Chelsea.
No, I'm going Spurs. I think Spurs will pull themselves together.
I think Spurs will fuck it up. I think it's Chelsea.
That three, the Northwest three, and Chelsea.
Yeah.
Steve?
United, top. Burnley second. No, United, City will win it, obviously. And then I think you'll be able to throw a blanket come the end of the season over United, Chelsea and Liverpool.
Okay. John?
Yeah, North London, I think, to miss out this year. But that might be with a Liverpool hat on, but that is my hat, so I shall wear it.
Okay, excellent stuff. Thank you very much to John, to Steve, to Gareth, and to Mike. It's been your Anfield Wrap this week. We're going to all be psyched up for a massive, massive Friday night in London. Loads of stuff on Tour Player. You know how to subscribe by now. theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe. See you in a bit.